Today's episode is brought to you by Archon Mounts. For those of you that are content creators and you want the best mounting solutions for your cell phones, your DSLR cameras, well, go to archon.com. Be sure to use my promo code Hawaii and you'll get 20% off your entire order. Also, all of their products come with a lifetime guarantee. So head on over to archon.com, keeping your devices within reach. We are live. We're live. Hello, family. We're going to be live. I don't know how long we're going to be on today, but it is a year in review part one. And I just want to say thank you. I honestly don't have a lot to talk about. I have a lot of notes, but I'm not sure I'm going to cover it all because I think I'm going to wing it on a lot of these topics or guests. So if you don't know what this is my year in review. I did one last year. It wasn't like how it's going to be today. However, I just want to say I want to be really mindful of the guests that I've had. So I didn't do a tally, but I'm blessed. You know, I'm totally blessed to be able to do this, and to have just people that are willing to talk. And I think that's kind of what it's ironic because I was never a talker, which might sound strange. But anyways, we are live on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble, as well as X. And we're going to put this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. So with that being said, once again, we're going to talk story a little bit. And if you guys want to share this out, you're more than welcome to my audience on Rumble. Thank you. I'm not sure how it works, but I've been getting some really nice engagement and viewership on Rumble. So thank you to the people at Rumble who just watch my stuff, and people on Kick. Kick is kind of hit or miss. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I am grateful for my family on Kick as well. I'm going to log in on my Kick just to see if I miss anybody, but I want to thank you guys for being here. We're going to play our intro video. We will be back in 57 seconds. And once we come back, we're going to talk story about our year in review for our Glow Sessions podcast. 57 seconds. We'll be right back. I had it blasting up my headphones. I didn't realize how loud it is, but I thought that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris was a nice touch at the end. Where are we headed to next? So, man, what an interesting year this was for me in terms of creating videos. I don't do a lot of really good written content because I'm not a grammar guy. I don't do good with grammar. So, but I enjoy sharing stuff. I'm just not a really good, like a proofreader, spelling checker kind of a guy. Although I'm a pretty good speller. When it comes to typing it out, and I'm like person that needs somebody to write things out. So, but what an interesting year this was for me. And I started, tonight we're going to talk about podcasting. We're going to talk about, even though this video is a live stream, it's all podcasting because when I put it up to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, it converts into what we call an RSS feed. And so I just want to clarify the distinction between the two. And to my family on Twitch, thank you, and I appreciate you. I'm not sure who's going to jump in tonight. It's always a surprise when I see old friends. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is my journey in podcasting and why that is important, not just for me, but even the people that I get to spend time with. But I think also for you, the listeners, the watchers, the viewers, how important I think this is and why I'm so passionate about doing these conversations. And a lot of it has to do with learning. It has a lot to do with learning, having the conversations without the pressures of being interviewed. And I think, obviously, I take a lot of my notes from Joe Rogan. I don't agree with Joe Rogan in the sense of, personal philosophies, language filters. But I agree with the way that people come into his show and just bear everything and share everything. I love that. So my dream is to offer something like, not like him, that's him, right? So for me, it's like sharing my heart, but having what I say, a kingdom perspective. So for those of you that know me, been following me for a while, you know that there's something different the way I carry myself. It's not like, I'm not trying to put myself up on a pedestal because it's by the grace of God that I'm able to have a lifestyle and a life that is pleasing to him. And although I'm not perfect, there's a lot of things we got to work on, and there's a lot of goals we have not met yet. But that's my dream, to be able to do a podcast, to have guests that are intriguing and not necessarily fall in line with the views that I have, but to get to learn from them and quite possibly come to these middle grounds, if you will, on how we can share our wealth of knowledge and wisdom, whether it's in business or whether it's in a ministry. For those of you that are Christians and you're in that ministry space, I haven't had a lot of, believe it or not, I haven't had a lot of Christian guests. When I say Christian, I mean like people that are, let me rephrase that, people that are in ministry or in like they're serving in a leadership capacity in their churches, or whether they're a pastor or so I haven't had a lot of that this year. Last year I had a few where some heavy hitters and some shakers, movers and shakers. I had Dr. Battle, who is a UN ambassador. She also a pastor. She's a public speaker. She owns quite a bit of farms in West Africa. So just people like that. I do want to get more guests like that. So, but today we're going to talk about 2024 year in review and just how blessed I was to connect with these people. And one of the things, before I get into it, that I want to acknowledge is people that I don't even know the series was called America at Work, and I didn't quite have the traction I thought I would, and a lot of it is me. I think I greased my wheels a little bit too much. I never really left the starting gate in this series called America at Work, but I did have 3 guests that fit that bill. And I probably could have gone further, but maybe I'll just continue throughout 2025 and keep adding to that. So for people that are like kind of confused, what is this? Well, before I get into the topics of Glow Sessions podcast, one of the things I really felt led this past year was to focus on different sectors or different realms of influence. And one of the things was in the area of work, people going back to work, or people who stayed in work. And a lot of those jobs are things that maybe not everybody is willing to do. I don't know how many people are willing to bust their okole, as we say in Hawaii, and be a truck driver. Truck drivers spend long days, long hours just driving, and typically a lot of them are not home for extended periods of time. So I was blessed to have a couple of truck drivers. As a matter of fact, I had another guy who would fit that bill, but he was later on in the year, which was Sid, the gas man. We'll come back to him in a second. So my first guest in this area of America at Work series was a truck driver by the name of we call him Big Jim. I'm not sure if we ever mentioned his last name in our podcast, but Big Jim. So for those of you that are listening and you want to catch up on these podcasts that maybe you've never heard or seen, Big Jim is episode number 29. Is it episode 20? Yeah, episode 29. And I hope I got that right. It's going to be early on. So episode 29, Big Jim. And one of the things that really got my attention with Big Jim was, well, one, he's big. just he's tall. I never met him in person, but I know throughout. I met him through social media on this app called Periscope, and we were blessed to just talk about why he continues to work, how, and the reason why I wanted to have him and do this series is that through I think 2021 through 2022, I it seems like I've run into a lot of areas, cities, where it seemed that they didn't have a decent workforce, and one of the common threads I ran into is that a lot of these businesses could not keep a workforce, so people didn't want to work. And so when I started talking to Jim and so he's a truck driver, professional truck driver, and how he was able to push through COVID, the mandates. He's based in California, and I actually met him not in person, but like through social media. I used to do a lot of live streaming on his other app called Periscope, where that's how we kind of connected. He has an Instagram, which I follow. He posts his work, and just going through the ups and downs of the trucking industry and how they're affected by literally mandates. They're affected by mandates. They're affected by governmental policies, especially when we went through that COVID fiasco. I don't know if he went through anything as bad as the guys, I think, in the Canada, and they had the big thing in Canada. But Big Jim was, he was interesting. And also former military, and we didn't talk a lot about that, but former military, and it was a pleasure to spend time. And I think we were talking. We did our podcast was about 3 hours, And here's what I'll say: if I ever have you as a guest, I don't have time restraints. I make it a point to clear my schedule for that day. And I don't have time. Now, I do have a maximum because, I got to eat and got to go to the bathroom, got to, spend time with the family. But typically, I try to clear the schedule. And Jim, I was with Jim for at least 3 hours. And that was, it wasn't hard at all. It was actually kind of hard to put it to a close or bring it to a close because there's so many things you want to get to know about somebody. And sometimes you just don't have enough time in a day. But for the sake of the podcast and for our listeners who, devote their time of the day, we kind of wanted to give them just a little snippet. And I know 3 hours may seem like a long time, but if you come to my house, 3 hours is not enough time, especially when we start, having dinner and we just start talking about stuff that matter. And so Big Jim was one of my first, actually, he was the first America at Work series. And, some of the things that really caught my attention from this podcast was, and I'm going to use Jim as an example, is that sometimes when people, if there's no pressure for them to deliver, like, let's say, a series of lessons or teaching about, could be anything, science, could be whatever, product launches, there's no pressure to go through certain points and to give a rehearsed answer. And so along with that territory, a lot of times the conversation goes on and on and on. And then as a podcaster, I'm not saying that Jim he wasn't rambling. Let me be clear. He wasn't rambling, but sometimes you want to bring it back to a point where you originally started. I'll use my wife as a great example. We've been doing these daily, I just say podcasts. And sometimes my wife will talk about a topic and she'll start on the topic, but she'll go on another tangent on that topic, but spend a lot of time. And there's nothing wrong with it because it's very important to have sometimes context. But as a podcaster, as a host, sometimes you want to bring it back to the original topic of discussion, just so I don't know if it's a control thing or honestly, I don't know. I think part of it is I want to make sure that the original point or the topic was really drilled into enough, if that makes any sense. So with Big Jim, episode number 29, that is by far one of the coolest podcasts I've done, especially in the area of people going back to work. Carolina, episode number 30. She was someone that I met, I think it was on Instagram or YouTube, I forget. I think I heard of her through this guy on Twitter who's a carnivore evangelist, as I say, and so is she. And she brought out some really powerful things in her life, how she's done so many different diet programs, medical procedures, just battling a lot of immune things, like just everything's autoimmune, if that's the right word, and just having to fight for her life, for the doctors not knowing what's wrong with her in her body. And so Carolina, I think she was in Poland. Was it Poland? I can't quite remember. I think it was Poland. I can't remember, but I think it was Poland. And I feel like I'm low in this frame, so I'm gonna try to on the fly adjust it. Maybe it's my posture. But Carolina was I think Poland. So that I'll share the time frame on that one for anybody that, I don't know if anybody that's listening or watching will remember that podcast, but I think that one I did at 11 o'clock at night. And so, and the reason why I did that at 11 o'clock at night was because her time zones. So it was hard to connect with time zones. That's one of the things that you gotta make a decision. Like, am I gonna accommodate a time zone so we can get our listeners and just be able to connect? A good example, was it this year or last year? Oh, it was last year. So I had my friend Dave in Osaka in Japan. Accommodations had to be made for him too because of the time zones. So, but Carolina, if anybody wants to write this down, but Carolina was episode 30. Based out in Poland, all she eats is meat. That's it. Red meat. Red meat, and I forget what else she eats. I think that's it. Red meat, salt, and water. So, because of this, she had all of her medical conditions, I would say the majority of them were reversed. And from being hospitalized and being healthy again. And now she's got a podcast and she's actually doing really good. I'm not sure if she's on, I'm pretty sure she's on YouTube. But I will say that in that podcast, I think we got to the rapid fire session. So for anybody that is a guest of mine, I always do rapid fire at the end. And all my rapid fire questions are basically like on the fly. I'll try to write them down the day before. Sometimes I work them out in the middle of the podcast. I'll be literally writing questions down. So, I'm like, okay, question number one. And so with Carolina, when I got to a certain topic and a question, it literally hit my heart so heavy. And it was powerful when at that moment I remember that she was willing to share something so personal. And not a lot of people are. I feel like, and I experience this a lot on Twitter, on X, is that there's a lot of people that are willing to share things that maybe are good content, content worthy, if that's even a sense. Like even people that post like encouraging words or even scriptures. I think a lot of times we are so quick to post something that's righteous or correct or the right thing to say or post, but yet I feel like sometimes we don't post enough of heartfelt content, like literally like, hey, this is what's on my heart right now. I just felt led. God put this on my heart right now, and I gotta share this with you right now. I don't know if there's a lot of that on social media, percentage wise. Carolina, however, when she shared this one story, it was very, very powerful. And it literally broke my heart just hearing it. And if you watch that episode, you'll see I'm literally, I'm fighting the dust in the room. I'm like, I'm literally fighting the dust in the room. And I will say that was very special. Now, mind you, at that time, I'm still learning. I'm still navigating the idea of healthy conversation and not going too deep. And also guarding myself. One of the things my wife and I talked about this year is being careful, not just on the questions that are being asked, but also I don't know the word in itself other than accountability and guarding myself, and of course protecting our guests. Not putting our guests or myself in a position where it would make us uncomfortable later. And one of the things I tell all of my guests is that, number one, we're live. Everything we say is going to be obviously recorded, and once it's out there, it's out there. And so one of the few of the questions I ask every guest, is there anything that you do not want to talk about? Is there any topic that you feel that is private or sacred to you and that you don't want me to go there? And I always ask that just out of respect and courtesy, to make sure that I don't go to that territory. And that's one of the things that my wife and I talked about this year, was to make sure that we do it well, and we do it with excellence. And yeah, so let me go to the next one. Coach Turby. And let me pause for a second. I feel like I'm just rambling off like a lecture. Once more, I want to acknowledge YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. Thank you for being here. And also to Beth. I see Beth and Hope in Christ live on X. And also there's a few people in the lobby. Thank you for being here as well. You guys are awesome. And then my family, my Discord family. I have a Discord family. For those of you that don't know what that is, we have a let me say this real quick. I can say this because it's not in here. I see you, Dan. Good to see you. I'm going to talk about my Discord family just a second. Let me pop this comment. Hey, there's Dan. Dan's actually he's a great host as well. If you guys don't know Dan, he's got a lot of things going on, and it's good to have you in here. But let me talk about my Discord family, okay? So I have I have 5 different servers on Discord. For anybody that does not know what Discord is, it's basically an ability to create your own social network in little folders of what we call servers. And so these servers, you can create different topics, and you can assign moderators, etc., etc. So it's very private. It's by invite only, I think. So I've been on Discord since 2019, 2020. And so we actually use Discord for our business. So for those who don't know, I actually had, with Joey, we had 2 cryptocurrency companies. We started our own cryptocurrency company. We had our own analytics company. So a lot of our conversations were held on Discord just because of the ability to be private. And we could filter our team accordingly. So going back to the original topic, to my Discord family, I know you guys are playing a video game right now. They're all playing video games. So I can tell because I'm getting notifications. But I love Discord because it gives us an ability to connect outside of social media, because our Discord is private. It's not connected to Twitter. It's not connected at all, but it's highly social in this little bubble. And then when we're ready to go and be social, we get out of this Discord. So it's great. It's great for meetings, great for social aspects. Okay, before I get into the next guest that I had, Hope in Christ says, I do think the algorithm discourages positive and real conversations, sadly. I would say I agree. I agree in the sense that people determine the algorithm. So, and it also depends on the circles that we create. Like, for example, I don't see politics. It's extremely rare, right? And a lot of it has to do with my filters and things that I engage with. I only follow, so for example, on Twitter, on X, I only follow like 300 people or so. So my influences and my algorithm is very limited to what I follow and then what I post or what I engage with. So just for the record, for people that don't know, my business partner, Joey, is a former engineer. I always say this. I always got to throw this out there. He's a former engineer at Twitter. He's not an expert, but one of the things we do talk about is every function that we have on social media, there is nothing that is sentient or is self-sustaining. Everything is run by human beings. So that includes algorithm, right? So in that respect, I agree. But I also do believe that we need more content out there, whether you have 5 viewers or 50,000, One of my live streams I had 4 years ago, I had 14,000 people watch it, and it was lively. People were talking and engaging, but a good 4,000 of those were bots. So and they were review bots, right? So it's just to puff up numbers, right? I'm gonna read a comment from X for those of you that are on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. Dan is a cock-eyed optimist, so I reframe like everything. I like to look at the algorithm as a calculus of life. Yeah. You know what an engineer's dream is? I'm gonna throw this out there. The engineer's dream is to be able to create something to where he's not acknowledged for creating it, to the point where you won't harass him for tips on how to navigate through that. So that's probably a very overcomplicated answer to what I was trying to say, but some of the engineer friends that I have, they prefer to not be known on what they can do, because they don't want people to ask, hey, how can I get a better score? Or how can I get, and they're like, no, I don't know. So, but the truth is, I think if we put out more content that's heartfelt and we're passionate about it. Now, I do agree, Airplane Girl, Haktua Girl, who else? I think that's all I can think of right now, right? That type of content obviously will always be there, right? Or what is it? The airplane lady, the crazy airplane lady. Let me text my wife. I need a bottle of water. I thought I had my water here. Out here in the water, and then we're gonna talk about what are we on? We're on Coach Turby. Can you have Zoe bring water? Water, please. Water, please. Here we go. Yeah, I'm not going to bring that name up, Hope in Christ. This is, I don't want to lose points. I don't need to. And that one's getting deeper. That story is getting more layers and layers. That probably wasn't a good choice of words, but that one's getting a lot more layers. So I think part of that's heartbreaking. That's a really heartbreaking story, and she needs deliverance. I'll leave it at that. Okay, we'll put down one and we'll lock down. Can she be? Yeah. Okay, Coach Turby. So, for anybody that does not know Coach Turby, episode number 31, that was on in March. I forget what month it was. Coach Turby, he actually is an author, father. He's a truck driver as well. And I wanted to have him on because he represented somebody that does that 9 to 5. But he's also building that passive residual income, make money when you're sleeping. And so I wanted to have him on to kind of share his heart on how he's able to have one hand in a cookie jar and another hand on a steering wheel, and to able to share with people how he's doing it and the dreams and goals. And one of the things that got my attention about Coach Turby is that he wrote a children's book. Just for, I think, teaching kids like how to have a mindset that is a success mindset. Coach Turkey. I'm gonna put this comment up. Here we go. I know it's a typo, but I'm gonna put it up there. Are you out of your mind? But yeah, Coach Turby, not Turkey, as Dan said. Coach Turby, I think he's got 5 kids. And we connected in that respect of obviously having children, and we're both believers. And he's a highly motivational speaker and author, writer as well. Are author and writer the same thing? Good question. Oh, so are you talking to Sia? Is this a brand new bottle?
That's what they said.
Who's they?
It's cola. I opened it just now.
And it's a brand new bottle.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of stuff. It was just small stuff. But I think it's.
It better be tap water. I'm gonna be mad, Zoe. I think it's okay. Thank you. And by the way, I'm not sponsored. I'm trying so hard to get sponsored by this company. So people that are on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble, of course on X, I'm trying so hard to get sponsored by this company. And for anybody that's wondering, well, what do you mean sponsored? Just so you can say their name? No, I want to be able to get their products at a cheaper price and eventually get paid by them. This is my dream. Okay. And I emailed them 3 times. So if anybody, for some reason, knows anybody that works at YKL or Vikea, this is my hometown. This is where I'm from. Okay. If you look on the back of the bottle, this is where I'm from. This is, bro, this is from, I'm not even joking, bro. It's from, okay, if you read the bottle, I'm going to read it. It says Keau Aquifer. So I'm born and raised Hilo, Hawaii. My hometown is Keau. So if anybody knows anybody from this company, can you tell them, hey, Greg's been emailing you guys. I even left a voicemail at their office. And I even told them this long story. Hey, bro, what a great success story. If I'm from your hometown and you're like, if I hit it big, like, bro, can you imagine? Can you imagine those stories, bro? Just saying. Yours is Apple, though. Dancing. It's a cool water bottle. I'm not talking bad about them, but by the time we get them here in Oregon, the labels are kind of like in Hawaii we say hamajang. So hamajang is another way for like saying messed up. So, but yeah, if anybody knows anybody at YKL, help a brother out, please. Thank you. So, anyways, this is good water. I needed it. Coach Turby, to close out Coach Turby, one of the things I remember about him is that he had a sword in the background as well. So when we were doing our podcast together, I was like, "Brah, that's a cool." And we talked about it, and that was pretty cool. One of the cool moments, And in the area of podcasting, I want to encourage anybody that is considering doing it. I will say, don't just wing it. Script it out, and you don't have to follow your script but like before, even before I went live today is not really a podcast. It's more of a podcast about a podcast. So it's not a podcast. So it's kind of like a micro podcast talking about podcasts that I used to have or that I had early in the year. So I hope that was confusing enough, but getting to my point is that I did have a workflow of how I wanted to do today's episode. And one of the things I encourage people, hey, if you are considering doing a podcast, script it out, write it out. Or for me, pray about it. Is that what God wants you to do? And there's a lot of people out there right now that are just hungry to learn about something, someone, maybe be encouraged or just have something to watch other than Netflix or just, wow, check this out. The Seinfeld podcast. That's funny. That's why me and Dan are in the same fabric. You know what's funny about Seinfeld? That is the most successful show of all time that talks about nothing. It's pretty amazing. Let me check my comments. There's something that popped up. Hey, there's what's up, Jonathan? That comment popped up top. I don't know why I did that, but thank you for. Jonathan has a core idea. He just speaks his thoughts on it. Recently, I've been doing more of a script. Yeah. Now, thank you for sharing that, Dan. I mean, I have Dan and Ted. I call him Ted. Jonathan. I call him Ted. I'm butchering Gregory. So Ted, aka Jonathan, the reason why he's Ted is because of the evolved dad. So my brain works in layers. Okay, so yeah, Jonathan said that he has a kind of like a core idea and then thoughts on it. That's kind of how I do most of my like my last podcast I did. I won't talk about it just yet, but the last one I did was it was at a restaurant, and so that was interesting because in the restaurant it was a sushi restaurant, and I did a podcast there and with a guest, and I can hear the dishes, and I hear the the Japanese employees, which is funny because sushi is Japanese, but you hear I know Chinese. I can tell the difference in Chinese. Chinese and Japanese are real easy to distinguish for me. And I can hear them talking in Chinese in my headphones. I'm like, oh my God, these guys are so loud. But in the podcast, you don't really hear it. You hear the dishes and you hear the beeps and alarms. But going back to the podcast, there's a hunger for people to watch or hear or listen to things that are not like Netflix or Amazon Prime movies. Because the other day, how many of you guys have ever sat in front of a TV and you ask your family or your wife and you're like, okay, what shall we watch? And you spend about an hour just watching previews, and then by the time you're done, you're like, I'm just gonna go on my phone. You play video games or you check whatever, and it's like, man, I just spent an hour looking at previews trying to find something to watch. And with the, how should I say it? The outpouring of people doing a podcast is great. I love it because it's long form. Well, typically long form. When I say long form, it's like longer than half an hour or maybe longer than 10 minutes. But we do need more. We need more people. So if you're considering it, just do it. Do it. I don't want to do my voice. I'm on YouTube, so I might get hit with copyright, but I won't do it. I have Arnold sound bites. Solid hour. Let me put in some comments. TV kind of does suck. Yeah, I agree. And I add in setting up the project, and I add in projector. Yeah, I'm gonna try to piece together those comments. I'll think about it. So let me go to actually, matter of fact, you may not believe it. I'm not sure if Jonathan's still in here, but check this out. Jonathan's actually the next guy I'm talking about. See number 32, the Evolved Dad. Can you guys see that? How ironic is that, brothers? The Evolved Dad, Ted, Jonathan. That was one of my. Yeah, it was. So for this year, if not the first, one of the first to have equipment, and it's not a like a requirement. But he had his own mic set up, headphones, and I appreciated that. When I send out my invites, and mind you, by this part of the year, I didn't have my legal things in order, so I didn't have all of my paperwork in order, and also my expectations. And so for anybody that's a guest now, and I'm not going to share all the business back end of it, but I do have a non-disclosure, like an NDA. I do have an independent contractor agreement, non-competes, and those are all comprised in a singular document to where all my guests will sign it. But before they sign it, I have them read it, and it's nothing crazy. I don't say, hey, you can't do your own podcast, or it's nothing like that. It's more like if we shared anything in private that was sacred in the area of best practices or business practices, those things are not, what's the word? Not able to be capitalized without some form of, it's not about the money. It's kind of like, what do they call it? It's like IP, like intellectual property. It's basically to protect that on both parties, because it's not just for me, although it is my form, right? So, and Dad is walking through Target. So we have a home projector. It takes a lot of bit to set up. Family goes, oh, I got you. My favorite is when he showed me a list of social security numbers. Yeah. Did I have social? No, I didn't. But I don't know if you signed it, Dad. I'm just kidding. But let me read one more comment, because this is in regards to Jonathan. He says he specifically does 10 minutes for busy dads. Yeah. And Jonathan's podcast reminds me a lot of, if you guys ever heard of, who's that guy with the deep voice? He does Dirtiest Jobs. Who is that guy? I think it's Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe does short. Typically, actually, he's got two shows, but one show is kind of short, and then the other one is just open conversation. But yeah. So going back to Jonathan, he's I think he's the first guest I've had other than Papa Bear Alaska. So Papa Bear Alaska, we won't talk about him. He goes, he's an old friend, but he used to have a reality TV show, so he knows about audio and positioning and projection of the voice, and I know Dan knows all these things too. But when Dan came on my show, I think he was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna wear just a Disney T-shirt and tank top or whatever. And I'm just kidding, but yeah. So Jonathan, I was very appreciative of that. He understood, because he has his own podcast, so he understood that. And then I think he was one of the, out of all the podcasts I did, I think the fifth person that was like a father. So it was very special to hear his thought processes and how he carries out his I call it DMO, right? So daily method of operation with his family. And we don't have the same line of work, although mine was more marketing, in the tech side of things, but he was definitely more of the more important guys in the area of IT. So, but the similarities were working from home, and the family and kids. And one of the things I remember about our conversation was, how do you navigate when kids want to come in there and just, hug you, right? Or spend time with you. And he had a great philosophy on the boundaries, right? There are some things that, if you've got an important phone call or meeting, is to let everybody know, hey, this is can't have, any interruptions. And I will say this though, on a side note, I went to a business conference back in 2005 where Donald Trump was a keynote speaker. And I think he spoke for like 2 hours at this conference that I was at, me and my wife. No, actually, me and my dad were at this conference. And one of the things Donald Trump said at that time, he said that my kids, and this is his philosophy, his take on it. He said that whenever I have a meeting and if my kids call, I always answer the phone. And I found it to be interesting that Donald Trump, of all people, would say something like, if I'm in a meeting and my kids call, I always pick up the phone. And this is back in 2005 now. And I'm like, wow, that's a very interesting. And his philosophy was that he does not want to make his kids feel like that he's not accessible at any time, because if it's an emergency or anything. So I don't know if we all have the ability to do that. It would be nice. For me, I chase squirrels, so sometimes I need to be left alone, because if not, we'll be chasing squirrels all night long. I've chased 5 already. So, but yeah, if you guys are not following Jonathan on X on Twitter, one of my guests, I think he didn't change. Let me double check. Let me just verify. His user handle is the Evolved Dad, if I'm not mistaken. I want to make sure he didn't change it. He can fact check me. Just where is he? Where are you? Where are you? Come on. Yep, so it's the Evolved Dad, so he didn't change it. So that's good. Next guy I did. Who was the next one I did after him? Oh, okay. I found it. Don't mind me, I'm drinking my Hawaiian water. This is legit Hawaiian water, by the way. If you want Hawaiian water, like legit from Hawaii, from my hometown. Yeah. So how they get this water is that they actually drill a well thousands of feet below the lava flow where I grew up, and that's where they get the water. So, okay, here we are. Where are we now? We are on Sarah Listy. I don't know how I found her. I think I find her on Instagram. I think it was Instagram. Let me see. What's up, DB? Good to see you. DB on X. Sarah Listy, she's the founder of Two Girls Garage. I'll put up. I forgot I can put up in comments. So Sarah Listy. That's what her name looks like. For put up on. So Sarah Listy is she's a reality TV show host. She had her own TV show on I forget, but anyways, it was called Murder House Flip, and she's an amazing woodworker. She does finish work. She does everything. She's a homesteader. But her TV show, they would renovate homes that had murders in them. So they would fix it up, and then they would sell the homes. And that TV show was based around that. So I had her as a guest, and I was really I was like excited to have her, because a lot of the things that she was doing in the area of sponsorships, product sponsorships, I admired that. And she's got tons. And one of the things that I think I remember watching her do was these product reviews. So if you've never seen her show or her social media, she's got a lot of followers on Instagram, and she's growing on Twitter. I think she's on TikTok too. But she's amazing with woodworking. I don't know how many kids she's got. At least 2 kids. And she's not, she doesn't hide anything. She's kind of private in certain areas, but she was very transparent in when we were talking. And when we did our podcast, it was in her shop. So she was in her shop, and you could see all the wood in the background. Very gifted. And she was part of that America at Work series. So she was my number 3. And I think she was kind of like the 5. So part of that series, what I was doing was America at Work. And basically people doing the jobs that maybe not everybody knows about, or maybe they don't find it as glamorous. I think one of the glamorous jobs people think is being a content creator and get paid to create content. A lot of people did some crazy things this year on social media just to get that potential viral hit, right? To maybe go viral and get sponsorships and all that stuff. But not Sarah. She's a amazing TV show host. I think I told her you should do another one, and I told her I would love to be on it. I like not to do, well, actually I can do woodworking, but just to be on a show. I would figure out a role. I'll figure something out. But one of the things I remember about doing that podcast with her is that it was easy. It was so easy to do a show with her. And one of the reasons why is she's extremely what's the word? What's the opposite of intro? Is it extro? She's very extroverted, very knowledgeable, extremely wise. And one of the things here's what I admire. And every guest I've had is great, because every guest has different nuances. They have different qualities that I enjoy. But one of the things about Sarah, and I had another guest last year, is that I love it when guests ask me questions. I love that, because even though it's not about me, it shows me that there's a level of comfort, like as if they're in my house. And so I love that. Like, it's like, okay, we're there. And one of the reasons why I love long form, and check this out, is that if you come to my house tonight, tomorrow, next week, whenever it is, we're going to eat dinner, right? We're going to hang out, and we're going to say all of our superficial stuff. How's the family? How's work? How's your health? We're going to eat dinner. We're going to be full. We're going to have dessert, drink coffee. That's hour number 1. Hour number 2, that's when the real discussion starts to happen. That's when we're like, okay, what do you think about aliens? Right? What do you think about Donald Trump? What do you think about Kamala Harris? Do you really believe this or that? That's when the real questions start to come, and that's when the defenses come down. That's when the guard comes down. And I'm not saying that my podcast guests put the guards up. I think we all do. I think we all kind of have our guard up a little bit to protect what we've spent all this time cultivating in our character. And the last thing we want to do is just go diving straight in and just just blurt everything out. And then you're like, oh no, wait, what did I say? Where is that? Where's that comment? That's why I love long form, because by the hour 2, it's okay, here we are. Let's let's talk about some stuff now. And Sarah was one of those people. And but here's a crazy thing about her. Because she's a professional in the area of media, she's a professional in the area of TV, in writing and creating content. She can cultivate what I just talked about and still do it in a smaller time frame. That takes something very special for someone to be able to cultivate that. And I took notes. I definitely took notes from that. So I don't want, there's so much more I can share on that. And that would, all my guests. But let me do some housekeeping. Are you guys, you know what, can I play, I want to just clear sinuses and have a nice big swig of water, and I don't want to be rude doing it. But I want to say thank you once again to those of you that are on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Thank you for listening. And if you guys haven't shared this out, obviously sharing is great. You don't have to, but if you are so inclined to help a brother out, always appreciate it. So like, share, subscribe for those of you that can subscribe on those channels. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a short 1 minute break, maybe not even 45-second break, and we'll be right back in about 45 seconds. Want to announce our new merch is up. If you go to therealgilo.com, click on merchandise, it'll take you to our storefront, which has our last run of our t-shirts for the fall season. It's Stay Humble and Shaka, Blessed Beyond Measure, Ezekiel 37 shirts, Yesu, which is Native Hawaiian for Jesus. And we also have our beanies, coffee cups. Get your hands on it while it lasts, because we're going to be running our winter apparel. TheRealGilo.com. Click on merchandise. And as I always say, mahalo for your support. I tell you what, it's hard to do a podcast by yourself. At least for me, it is. I can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. But it's hard because he's like, when I have a guest, I try to space it out, right? I try to space it out in chapters. I don't want to give you all my trade secrets, but I try to space it out in chapters and topics. And it's not all scripted per se, but I try to have categories, and I want to save some things for the end, right? When I'm by myself, I chase squirrels like crazy, I promise you. That's why I have my wife. So by the way, today's Sunday. So tomorrow we'll be live with my wife. We do that Monday through Friday, every day, every weekday. That's a little bit easier because I can let her talk, and I can kind of like interrupt her, and she can interrupt me, and we can kind of like try to figure out how our conversation kind of fits together. When you're by yourself, you're doing your own intertwining and mixing. So that's why having a script and a workflow, it helps, right? So, but it's still not easy. Not easy. Number 36, the Kyle Mack. And I'm going to give a shout out. I'm going to put his name on there. So the Kyle Mack, he was actually my most listened to podcast on Spotify. I was like, wow, of all the podcasts, you just never know. So Spotify did an amazing thing this year, and I love Spotify for this, is that they did a compilation video, like, I don't know what you call it, like animation video of my year in review. And that's kind of what's inspired me to do this tonight, is that Spotify did it for me. I'm like, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you, man. This is such a cool thing. And so the Kyle Mack, let me put him in. He's the only guest I've had. I'll put it up in here. Kyle Mack. He is the only guy, the only guest that I've had that actually trademarked his username. Like, the only guy, the Kyle Mack. So, and we talked about it, and we talked about how can you help other people to do it. Here's why it costs money. And so, I didn't trademark my username, but I did trademark our branding. So, with him though, he trademarked his username, which I thought was pretty interesting. I've never had a guest that trademarked his username before, and actually I've known that because we met 7 years ago on social media. So it was a pleasure to have him, but he was my number one listened to or watched guest on Spotify, which is very, I didn't know that. Not that he wasn't good or bad, or I just didn't think, like, you have certain guests, like, because of maybe, I don't know it was like credentials. And I'm not saying Kyle doesn't have credentials. That's not what I'm saying. But like, you would think that like Dr. John Strukins or Dr. Christina, who spent 30, 40, 50 years in their craft, in their expertise, and changing lives on such a grand scale. But I think Kyle, I will say about Kyle, he was one of the most heartfelt guests I've had, especially when I talked about an era of suicide. And he walked through that conversation really well. So well that I made a clip of it where we talked about, and the question I asked him, with everything that went on in your life, did you ever go to that dark place? And the way he answered it was like, this is why I do this, right? And I love that. And I wish Kyle was, I think it's kind of late for them right now. I think it's bedtime for him. I think he goes to bed at like 8:00 at night. So, but I'm not sure if you know him, Beth, but the Kyle Mack, I think he used to play music as well on Periscope, the other app. But when I asked him that question, have you ever gone to that dark place? Because there's a time when he was hospitalized and just losing his brother, loved ones, and just, I said, did you ever go to that dark place? And I will say about Kyle, he definitely, man, when he answered that question, that was legit. And I'll leave it at that. So if anybody wants to watch that, that's episode number 36. I want to talk about something my wife and I did, which is we did the Fight for Your Marriage series. I think we did 4 episodes. And I think we need to do probably 3 or 4 more. And I kind of did this against my, what's the word? I didn't really want to do this series because, so if you remember earlier, I said I wanted to do, so this year one of my goals was to do segmented topics on my podcast series, and this was one of them, is Fight for Your Marriage. And one of the reasons I didn't feel like it was a good thing to do is I felt like it's, and especially in Twitter, I just felt like people were not receptive. And I'm not sure if Hope in Christ is still in here. Let me see if she stepped out. But Hope in Christ, who is live right now with us on X, she said that unfortunately, good, wholesome content does not get favoritism or favorite looks, or doesn't get the engagement, perhaps because the algorithm doesn't recognize it, would rather give you that shock and awe material. And I feel like helping people fight for their marriage through all the issues, the things that we all face as married couples, it didn't seem like a popular topic. But one thing I will say is that I just felt led, my wife and I, we prayed about it, and that was one of the things that we're going to do. And no matter who shows up, we're going to do it. And I'm glad we did, because we ended up doing 4 episodes on Fight for Your Marriage. And it was great. It was, even though the topic and the flow of it was good, I was still getting used to having a co-host or someone to share the mic with. So my wife would tell you, there are times when we would end recording and she's like, you need to stop interrupting me. I'm like, and she said, like, it's rude to interrupt me when I'm talking. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know, honey. I think it's rude that you expect me to wait until you're done talking for me to talk. And so I said, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair for you to expect me to wait until you're done talking for me to say what I got to say. And let's just say that we're still working that part out, because there's some things when if you want to catch us in real time tomorrow, you can see what I'm talking about. She will say something, and I'm like, man, I want to jump in and I want to drop this golden nugget. I want to drop it. And she's looking at me. I'm like, man, I want to say it so bad. I'm like, I want to drop this golden nugget. and it's like, no, just hold your tongue. Let her finish. And because she gets derailed very quickly. I'm used to getting derailed, so I don't mind people interrupting me. I just work around it. So that's one of the fun things about working through doing podcasting with my wife, because it's kind of like, so for people that don't know this, some of my old school people may know that my wife and I used to have a morning show called the Tickle and Giggle Show, and we would go live like 5 days a week, and we would document through live stream our life, dropping the kids off at school, and then she would drop me off at school, and we'd have the camera set up. We had a Dodge Caravan, we had the camera set up, and we'd just talk and drink coffee, and we would find stuff to laugh about, and we would just have a good time doing it. So that was one of the things that me and my wife, we would do. Doing podcasting is a little bit different because some of these topics are very serious. They're very important to follow through on certain points. So when you have your own morning show called the Tickle and Giggle Show, is not necessarily pivotal, topics per se. It's just having a good time sharing life. Yeah. So Beth is commenting. Yeah, I'm glad she remembers the Tickle and Giggle Show. Episode number Papa Bear, Alaska. He was number 43. Number 43. That one was special because Papa Bear and I, it's like we've known each other for a very long time. He was my first actual podcast guest for this season of my life, for Glow Sessions podcast. He was the very first one. And this was special because a lot of times we'll text each other, and it's like we're just not able to connect. And then once in a while he'll call me. If he calls me on my phone, I think I would say about 9 times out of 10 I'll pick up, and we'll start talking. And in this episode, I remember he was sharing with me about clearing the camp. So for those of you that don't know Papa Bear Alaska, he's a pastor, public speaker. He's a teacher. He used to have his own reality TV show in Alaska. He has, I forget what it's called, camp. Oh, I'm going to butcher it, but he does a youth camp every year, every summer, in the remote parts of Alaska. And these camps are for high-risk youth, people that are, I don't even know the word. But a lot of these kids, they struggle with feelings of self-worth. And one of the things that really got me, we talked about this, was the high rate of suicide amongst kids in that area. And that really got me. That really hit me hard. That hit me heavy. Just talking about it. And I'm like, man, this is, and I was getting, I was crying, I'm like, man, this is sad that these kids are dealing with that. And, man, I was like, what can we do? Right. And so we talked a lot about that. And that was special. It's always special to have Papa Bear Alaska for sure. And I'm looking to have him again, but we need to do one in person. So for anybody who knows Papa Bear Alaska, one of the things he's famous for is he's friends with Santa Claus, Saint Nick in Alaska. So if you want to follow him and see what that's all about, follow him. It's Papa Bear Alaska on all socials. And what's the next one we're talking about? Is Amber Champagne. She is, for those of you that don't know her, I think she's on Twitter, X, Instagram. I don't think she's on TikTok. I don't think she does TikTok. But she was one of the guests I had. I don't know how I think I found her on Spaces, I think. And Spaces is it's like an audio format for those of you that don't know. It's like it's a social audio. No video unless you can turn on video, but primarily it's audio. And she's the owner of Champagne Apothecary, I think it's called. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to have her on is, one, she's great. She's great on camera. She's great in the area of having discussions and just talking. And she has her own comedy show. She's a writer. They have a huge community on Twitter, on X. But one of the things that got my attention was her business and her. So if you ever see her content, there's a definite connection to what she sells and markets, and how she delivers that product to the marketplace, which is us. And there's a very close connection to where, the one, she's passionate about it. She has no problem selling the products or things that she has because she created the products. So, and I think she owns the patents or the rights to the formulas and things like that. So those are things that really got my attention, because in today's economy, where it seems that corporate structures or people that are in a corporate environment, they're tired of it. They want to learn, how can I make money outside of a 9-to-5 job, right? So, and I was glad I had her. Although on that podcast, I will say one of the big snafus I had was I didn't double check my audio on the live stream video settings. So if you watch the live stream, it's very low quality audio. However, I was able to save the audio on my device here at home and use that audio for the podcast. So if anyone wants to listen to that, it's episode number 44, Amber Champagne. And I will say, one of the things I asked her is, what type of advice would you give to people? And one of the things she shared that really got and I'm pulling all this from memory, but I can't remember how many times. I don't know if she gave me a number, but one of the things she said that is that you're going to fail. I don't care what type of business you got. And one of the things that got my attention was, she said, if you're not failing, you're not doing something right. So I found that interesting. If you're not failing, you're probably not doing something right. And she said, you're going to fail. And one of the takeaways was, it's not just the failing. It's not how many times you fail, but it's how many times you get back up. Right. And that's one of the things that we talked about and she shared. And so I'm very grateful to have Amber Champagne. Who's the next one? Number 46. This is a good one. They're all good, but this is very personal. Man, this water's great. My friend, dear childhood friend, Chris Cashin. Grew up with him in the South when I was a kid. So for those of you that don't know my story, I'm born and raised Hawaii. However, 8 years of my life when I was a kid, I lived on the East Coast. When I say kid, basically from 10 to 18 or 10 to 17. And I met Chris Cashin there. We were friends, went to the same private school. We both went to private school for a minute. And when I left the South, came back to Hawaii, he stayed in South Carolina. We both got into ministry. He became a worship leader. I became a pastor eventually through our paths. Something triggered him to where he said, I'm done with this church stuff. I'm done with this politics of Christianity. And he shares very candidly about dealing with that. And I know there are other things in his life that really were not favorable that I believe contributed to the choice that he made. And one of the things we talked about is, in the area, especially in the area of leadership and ministry, there are things in leadership and in ministry. Let's just say leadership in general. It doesn't have to be church related, but there are certain things that happen in leadership circles that should not be shared with people that are not in that leadership ranks. And it's not about hierarchy, but it's about the maturity and the ability to think as a leader versus an employee or someone that is not a leader. Is that people that are not in leadership capacities are not looking with the same lens. Okay, so I say all that is when Chris decided, hey, I'm done with the church, there are things that he saw in church leadership circles that didn't seem right. And I'm not going to justify or not justify his experience or maybe the church that he was connected to, because he was in a mega church. He was in a very big church. So, but I understand that because, my family, my dad, retired pastor, my uncle, I've got 13 pastors in my family. So I understand that. And it was good to have him on. And we were live. We were together for 3.5 hours, I think. So it was a long conversation. It was good. And we didn't have enough time because even after we ended the podcast, we talked for another half an hour to an hour after that. And we probably could have kept the cameras on, but those are just private conversations. But I love doing that. And especially with Chris, he was easy. He was very, very easy. Here's another one that I enjoyed. This one's fun. Surprisingly, and this one really blessed me, is number 48. Dr. John Strukins. Dr. John Strukins. This guy was something special. And he's a clinical psychologist based out in Alberta, Canada. The reason why I wanted him, one of the reasons, because one, I knew him. And when I first, I think, seen him or he saw me was when I was live streaming in Hawaii. And he was always someone that would connect. He would always connect on when I was live. I never forget that. I always appreciate when people spend time and there were, I forget what year, I think it's 2019. When we decided to open up the drug and alcohol rehab, we partnered with Hope Center Ministries and my wife and I became pastors. And I remember he reached out to me and he said, if you need any help, you let me know. He says, I've been doing this for 30 years and I could, if you have any questions, I'm here for you. And I always remembered that. And so when it came time for me to do a podcast, and then I thought, hey, maybe Dr. John would be willing. And so we went live. We did a podcast. We talked about a whole bunch of social issues, political things, and obviously the era of drug addiction. And we were live for over 3 hours. And I'm like, man, that was so special. And you know what blew me away, family? Is that at the end of that podcast, when we turned off the cameras and we just started talking, similar to Chris, we were talking for like at least a half an hour after that, and it didn't seem like it. And I just kept telling him, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. And I told my wife, I said, honey, who am I that, I don't feel worthy, or how the word is worthy, or I'm like, why is it that these people would be willing to sit down with me for such a long time? And I still can't figure that out today. I'm just a guy, just a dude. I'm just a dude that wants to learn. I want to have that conversation. And when I have people like Dr. John are willing to sit and spend time with me, that's gold, bro. Legit. And I'm blessed that people like him are willing to just carve out their day. Super blessed. Man, there's so many great people on this list I want to talk about. I don't know if I have time to do it. I think I'm going to push through. But Dr. John Strukins, I appreciate you, brother. Number 50. Check this out. This one's special. They're all special. Number 50 was Irina Dortic. For anybody that doesn't know who she is on social media, prior to the last name, she was Irina Ivich. And I met her through, again, live streaming. And she's a former news anchor based out in Serbia. And she's a Serbian journalist, a content creator on YouTube. She does a lot of social activism or activist work in Canada. And one of the things that really hit me hard was this documentary that she did, and she put it up on YouTube, and it covered the First Nations, the indigenous peoples of North America. And she covered this story about a school where they found, I think, 200 bodies of children. I remember watching this documentary that she wrote. She wrote this documentary and she filmed it. And I'm like, we talked about it, and I'm like, I was so emotional. The one thing I really love about doing podcasting is that I'm able to get connected on an emotional level to learn what really happened, what made you write these stories, and to expose these things. And I will say, Irina is very, very smart. She's extremely smart. She knows her stuff. Even on a production level, man, we were live for like 3.5 hours too, and I was like, man, same thing. Like, who am I? You know, like who, like why, like. And I'm blessed. I'm not. What is the word? Is the word self-deprecating? I'm not self-deprecating on purpose, or I'm not saying I'm terrible. It's really humbling that people can make a decision. You know, I'm going to hang out with Greg for like a few hours. You know, I'm like, I know there's a lot of work that I want to. There's a lot of things I want to work on to get better at certain things. But Irina, thank you. Appreciate you. But the other thing that really got my attention, even after we ended, when we turned off the cameras, one of the things we talked about was just helping each other out. And she's very busy, so we really haven't connected after that. But in the area of, and one of the things she really hammered in our discussion after the cameras were off was scripting. She said, yeah, you got to script it out. And I really took that to heart, because here is someone who is a news anchor. She's a Serbian. She's a journalist. She's a professional content creator. She's been doing it for 20 something years. So when she says, hey, make sure you script it out, I said, okay. Because I'm not one of those people where I have, and we talked about flow, workflow. I think that's the word we use, workflow. And I appreciated that. I really did. And Irina Dorcic was number 50. It's funny she was number 50. And she goes, wow, I'm number 50? I said, yeah. She goes, how many? You've done 50? Yeah. And you know what she said? This is funny because I didn't think it was a lot. And she goes, wow, that's a lot. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I want to do more. But the reality is, it's hard to do what I want to do and do it well and do that many. So I kind of slowed down. After right around her, I slowed down a little bit, you know. And she said, that's hard to deliver content that's long form and informative and just open. And I thought about it. I'm like, it is hard. I'm going to take a little bit of time. So definitely we took a little break after her. Who's the next guy that I have? Can you read my own writing? What is this? Oh, you know, it's funny. Right after her was Dr. Christina Stye, another clinical psychologist. And that was 3 hours too. So, and it was just one after the other in terms of discussion. And so, you know, when you have someone that has so much experience and wealth and wisdom, man, you want to have them on as long as you can, because like I don't want to miss anything. Like, I don't want to miss anything. I want to get everything I can out of this discussion. I really do. And Dr. Christina, it's funny because, so Dr. Christina and Dr. John, for lack of a better word, or lack of a better way to describe it, I would have thought they would have been a lot more extroverted. I'm not saying that they're not good at speaking. That's not what I'm saying. But what I found out was, and we talked about it, so this is not me saying anything without them knowing, but I found out that the both of them are not typically extroverted. They're not, and I found it very. I'll be honest. I'm like, that's kind of not straight. Well, just different, because I'm thinking these guys, their profession is based around talking to people, and I was like, that is very foreign to me. I couldn't figure it out. But we talked for 3 hours each on both of those guys, right? And it was like, this is real, right? And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, is because it's like, it's not me doing it. We're not doing an interview. I tell everybody, we're not doing interviews. This is not, 100 questions. We're just talking. And I want to know what is it that makes you tick? Like, what is it that you do, and why do you do it? Why is it that you've been doing it for 30 years or 20 years? Or why is it that you're so successful? Why is it that you decided to come back to God after? Well, here's with Chris. Like, why is it that you were a Christian, you became an atheist, and why is it that you came back to God after that? Those are questions and things that I really want to know about. And so with Dr. Christina, she's one of those people that there were so many layers to our podcast, our discussion. I would love to have her on again, and maybe we can have a focal point, but I don't know. It would probably just what's new, what's going on, So I will say, is that all I've got? No, I've got a few more. I think I'm going to cap it off at Joshua Busby. Yeah, we'll stop it at the hour and a half mark. Joshua Busby. What a great way to close this year in review part 1. Joshua Busby, if you guys don't know who he is, he's a content creator on X. He is in a wheelchair, and he's been fighting Duchenne's disease or Duchenne's dystrophy, whatever it's called is Duchenne's. And basically a lot of his physical functions are very extremely limited. It definitely didn't limit his capacity to carry wisdom, because he's a very smart, very wise individual. He is, I won't drop his bio, but we connected on a lot of things just because of ministry, church, and God. And it was good to have him, because in short, his life testimony, his life story is that he's not supposed to be alive. And he's 40, whatever, I think he's 40 something. And I found it very powerful that he's outlived the doctor's expectations by 20 years. And so by having him as a guest, one of the things I really wanted to hammer in was that, I said, everything we're doing, it's a historical document. Everything we're talking about is going to be for the ages, right? And every guest to me is the same. Like, everything we talk about, it's a historical document. And I got that from Dave and Osaka, my friend out there in Japan. He said that, hey, Greg, I would like to think that everything that I put out there, they're all historical documents. And with the advance in technology and social media, we are creating historical documents. And with Joshua Busby, man, what a great, and I'm glad I got him. I'm not saying that he's got less time on this earth than I do, but you just never know. And to have him on as a guest, I was very grateful to have him on. And I think we were on for 3 hours too. I think we were on for a while. But it goes to that thought process that I shared earlier, that the first hour we're just talking about like life, credentials, updates, how you doing in this and that, and then the second hour we start getting to the tough questions. It was good to have it, because if for some reason God decides to take Joshua Busby, I'm glad that I got him in as a guest, because now I have something that I can say. I spent time with him. I really did. Dr. John out there on YouTube, missed the first hour. I'll need to go back and see what you covered. Hope you are well and have a blessed Christmas. Thank you, Dr. John. I appreciate it. Speaking of Dr. John, This is nothing profound, Dr. John, in the area of content. I'm just going through the list of things and some of the guests that I've had, and you and Dr. Christina, I will say, and I'm not sure if you caught that part, but I'm just totally overwhelmed and blessed that you guys were willing to give up your time to be with me, and I'm very grateful for that. And some of my funniest moments will be, I will say, with you as a guest, and some of the things we I will say Dr. John is one of those guys that if I'm at his house or he's at my house, we will be doing it for 5, 6, 7 hours, and we'd be like, okay, you know what, I think it's time for me to go home. I said that like 3 hours ago, but totally blessed, totally honored, and we are at that hour and a half mark. I think this is good for me. Gotta go get some nourishment, finish my water. I'm going to do one more of these before the end of the year, just to put everything to a close in the area of the year in review. And it's not going to be focused on guests, but it's going to be my whole year on social media, family events, and things that I want to share with you, things that are personal, but not sacred, if that makes any sense. But hopefully that what I share with you guys, it'll hopefully bless you. Hopefully it will encourage you. And there's a lot of things that happen this year that I can share. But I'm going to write it out. I'm going to script it out. I'm going to funnel it into hopefully a very powerful, heavy gold nugget. So there we go. I think that's it. I think I'm happy with that. I think I am. Let me see. Thank you to my family on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. Appreciate you guys. If you don't mind clicking that subscribe button, I would love it. For those of you on X, thank you for reposting, liking this, and the comments and the engagement. Appreciate you. I think that's it. My wife and I will be live tomorrow. I don't have this specific time, but we go live in the mornings. We do that before I go to work. And you want to see a dynamic couple in action, going back and forth? You want to catch us tomorrow. And we do that Monday through Friday as well. So that is it. I appreciate you guys. Dr. John, appreciate you. Beth, thank you for hanging on this entire time. Just as a recap, I'm going to read them off for those of you that missed it. I'll share with you, and I'll read the podcast episode number if you want to listen to it. We talked about Big Jim, truck driver, at episode 29. We talked about Carolina, my guest from Poland. Coach Turby, he also is a truck driver, number 31. Number 32 was the Evolved Dad, aka Jonathan. Sarah Listy, who is a amazing carpenter, woodworker, craftsman. She had her own TV show. She's also the founder of Two Girls Garage. That's episode number 33. The Kyle Mack, number 36. Number 39, that's the Fight for Your Marriage series. 43, we have Papa Bear Alaska. That goes without saying. He had his own TV show, reality TV show, Amazing Friend. Number 44, Amber Champagne. Number 46, my friend Chris Cashin, who was a Christian, became an atheist, then became a Christian again. Interesting story. Number 48, of course, Dr. John Strukins. Goes without saying, we've been talking about him. Number 50, Irina Dorcic, based out in, she's in Vancouver area, but she's from Serbia. She's a retired Serbian news anchor. I think she's retired. She's a journalist. She does documentaries. She is a social justice advocate. I think that's the term. Who's the other one? I can't read my own writing. What the heck? Oh, Dr. Christina. Dr. Christina, episode number 51. Irina was 50, in case I forgot that. And then episode number 53 was Joshua Busby, who is a dear friend of mine, and I'm glad we got him. That's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your hearts, super hearts, your data, all that good stuff. But most importantly, family, thank you for your time above everything else. I hope that exchange of your time for this was worth it. And as I always say, love you guys. God bless you guys. Ahui ho. Aloha e mahalo. Yes, sir. Chihu.